Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today I thought I'd play with the Storytime Collection Regal Rose Edition by Gina's Gem Creations. I got this a while back. I think the colors are really pretty. And I think a multi-strand bracelet might be fun to make. I want to keep it simple, of course, but you know, it never hurts just to play with beads and mix them together and, you know, add a chunky bracelet to my collection. So what I'm going to do first is I pulled the two of the toggle rings out, and I'm going to attach the bracelet parts to this, and I'm going to make my strands 5 inches across. And then I can go from there, you know, to make the length of the bracelet. So I've got all kinds of crystal beads and, you know, a little bit of silver. I think I might add a little bit more from my stash, but I've also got a ton of scrap wire that I put aside. So let me gather some crimp beads and some crimp covers, and I'll be right back to get started. So I had a decision if I wanted to go with bright silver or antique silver, and personally I like antique silver a little bit better, you know, just a little bit more to play with. And so I got some jump rings out, some crimp covers, some crimp beads. You know, I just made a little pile. These won't matter what color they are. And then, so all I really have to do is decide which beads I want to put together. So I pulled a couple of different sizes from my collection. So I've got some little tiny flowers, and then these, which have dotted ends. I think those are kind of cool, just so I can have a little bit of variety. And I think another thing that I could use are small spacer beads. So I'm just reaching over here to my silver spacer beads. And I guess this size, kind of an antique silver, and this size in round is good. I have a lot of pattern spacers too, but I kind of want to go with what I have a lot of. So I think that'll be good. If I need more, all I gotta do is reach over here across my desk. Okay, so I've got some options, and I think I'll probably do multi-strands going across and then a charm going down the bottom. So I'm going to pick a charm, and so in this kit I have a choice of some hearts, some crowns, a little chess queen piece, and a dragon, but I think maybe a flower would be good. I think that would look pretty. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm thinking my strands I'll make it 5 inch. Okay, and just make them across the board. And then I can mix and match them. So I'll have a little bit of variety. So I kind of like these. If you can see up close, let's see. So I've got a lot of color and pattern. You know, we got the pinks and the purples in them, which I think is so pretty. So I'm going to do that. And I don't see anything I want to mix them with. Maybe these. I don't know. Nah. think I'm just going to mix those with silver and do every other one. I think that'll be good. Okay. So, of course, naturally, I'm going to pull a piece of scrap wire, add a crimp bead, nope, I'm not going to add a crimp bead yet. I'm going to go ahead and put crimp cover on. And this is normally how I get started anyway. And I'm going to add crimp bead. These are tiny. It's a little hard to find the holes sometimes, but I got it. Alright, so I'm just going to loop that around. And pull it from the bottom, just so there's less waste. But I do like to leave a little bit right here. I'll trim it off, but I think it's good just to leave a little bit, just in case you need it. Okay, and I'm going to trim that off. And close my crimp butt cover into place. Okay, line the holes up. And I won't need a jump ring just yet. And I think what I'm going to do is just simply keep within my usual and just string them on. These are pretty little glass beads. They got all kinds of little swirls in them, in pink and purple. They're just pretty. And then the grayish beads, although they're kind of like a purplish gray, and I think those would, you know, kind of blend in with the antique silver. So I think that'll look nice. So I'm just going to string these on until my overall length is 5 inches. So I may have to finagle a little bit at the ends just because I've got this on there. So, you know, I want it to be 5 inches total, just so I can work with it. So this is a measuring thing, you know, because it too depends on what size wrist, and I think I'm going to probably put an adjustable chain on the ends here, just so the bracelet can be adjustable. But I'll have to see how that works out. Okay, so I'm going to continue on with stringing these on, and I'll meet you back when I get to the other end. Okay, so accounting for the ends and the jump rings, I figured from here to here, I'll make it 4.5 inches. Then I'll add on my ends, and that should equal about 5 inches altogether. So I am at the end here. Yeah, and once I put my jump ring, you know, that adds on too. And I don't want much more than 5 inches because I want it to be a good length. You know, that'll work. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and put my crimp bead on. And like I said, crimp beads don't matter when you've got a cover because you'll never see them anyway. Okay, so just making sure that's not too tight. I've got a little bit of playroom in it. Squeeze. And trim. And of course, You know, when you use as little waste as possible, it leaves me a little bit left over to make another strand. Then I'm going to squeeze these two together. And I'm going to put, I think that looks good. So I'm going to go ahead and put the jump ring on and put this on the round part of the toggle clasp. Okay. And of course I have to finagle my jump rings. I don't know why it never works squeezing them to sideways like they're supposed to. But, you know, it doesn't hurt to work with it. As long as when you feel it with your finger, it's not raised up anywhere. And if it is, you just work with it until it feels good. Okay, I'm happy with that. Okay. I'll have a jump ring for this end. So I think this is going to work out well. So I want about 5 inches. I don't want anything over, so I can work with the ends. Then I have to figure out what kind of clasp I want to use on the ends too. But I'll get there later when I'm ready. Okay, so squeeze that together. I think that feels good. Okay. So since I'm going to put multi-strands, this will make a perfect ring. All right, so let's take the tape measure and see what I've got. 5 inches. Yes. Okay, that's perfect. Okay. So I'm going to put those back, and then I'm going to decide on some others. So what would complement this? Okay, I like the square beads. That'll give just a little bit of extra to it. I think those are pretty. You ever notice that square beads are extremely hard to get out of the bead box? You have to be really careful, otherwise they go flying. And I do that quite often. Okay. So I'm sure I'll have more than I need. But what could I put in between them? So I still have plenty of these, but I don't want it to be exactly the same. So what if I separate them with these? I think that'll be nice. I'm really just designing on the fly, but that's half the fun. It's either that, or I could do a long one and 2 short ones. Yeah, I think I might like that better. Just to break it up. I think that'll be nice. And maybe I'll put a small bead cap on the ends of each of the pink ones, just to keep that silver in there. So, yeah, I think that'll be nice. All Alright, got my basic pattern. Gonna move these down here. Just because okay. So I'm gonna slide this up, gonna move that up. Just kind of move all this upward. I messed them all up now, but that's okay. I know how to string them on anyway. Alright, so I'm going to grab another length of scrap wire. And, of course, I'm going to do the do here and put my crimp cover on. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. You've already seen me do this a bunch of times. So I'm going to go ahead and put that on and string a few. And we'll see what it looks like when I'm done stringing it. Okay, now I'm going to start adding beads. And I think I'll start with a long one. And then I'm going to use a small bead cap. I just want to see what this will look like. So I'm going to add a touch of silver in each one. And I may get more spacer beads out or bead caps later. So I'm just kind of improvising. They didn't include a lot of spacer beads in this kit. Okay, so I think that's going to be cute. So I have learned I do it better right-handed, so I might want to switch hands. Square beads are kind of cute. Get a lot of sparkle to them. And the long ones are kind of subtle. They're kind of a subtle purple, so almost kind of gray, but not really. I think they go well with the pink. So that's where I'm going with it. Just keeping it simple and creating a pattern. And I'll be back when I get to the end. So to get through the right size on this strand, I did have to end with this bead, but that's okay. I kind of like the way it turned out. So that's going to be just the perfect size right here. And so now I'm just going to take my jump rings and attach them to the ring. This is very relaxing to me. I don't have to follow any instructions or worry about getting anything perfect. As long as you get these strands the right size, that's really all that's going to matter. Okay, so I am going to make sure that, you know, this will be correctly onto the ring. So I do have to pay attention to that. I've messed that up before, and you gotta take it all apart and redo it. All right, yeah. Snap. Okay, just filling it out. feels good. And voila, we have another strand. And I do see that that might get twisted easy, so I have to pay attention to that. But there we go. That looks nice. I could have left that off, but I didn't want it to be any shorter. You know, I really want it to be even. So, you know, when it goes around the rest, it'll feel right. All right, so now I've got some rondelles here to play with. So just to add a big element. Ooh, these have a lot of shine to them. I really like that. And I think I'll use the larger bead caps on this. Make it a little bit bolder. And wonder what I can put in between. I guess I could use these up still. Nothing wrong with it. Okay, I think I'm going to start with a spacer bead. And then I'm going to put on a bead cap. These are rondelles. That's so pretty. Look at that. And then I'm going to put on a spacer, and I'll just alternate with the rondelles and the little spacers. So I do want a lot of silver in here. So yeah, that's lacy. I like that. Very pretty. All right, so I'm gonna finish this this strand, and I'll be back once I get done. All right, I'm back, and I've got everything put together. And so I'm just attaching it to the ring now. And I think one of the cool things about doing strands like this is you don't have to be 100% committed. You know, if I didn't like the way that one of these strands looked on the bracelet, then I could always just take it off by the jump ring and make it into a single bracelet. So it's pretty versatile. You know, or if I wanted to change something out and do something a different way, it's easy. You just take the jump rings apart. But I pretty well like the way that's coming together. I think that looks really nice. And as long as they're as even as possible, it's gonna look good. So I'm gonna pull that apart just a little bit. Yes, I'm using my nails. Speaking of which, so I tried press-on nails. Loved them. They look great. But in my job, I have to type. And guess what? I cannot type with nails. Not at all. So, yeah, I think they came off halfway through the day. Although they did, you know, stay on pretty well before I took them off. So that was good. And I guess, you know, if I have an occasion where I'm not working or just going out or something, then, you know, I don't mind using the nails. But for beading, it's probably going to be a little tough. Just because I'm so used to using my hands and my nails as a tool. Which is probably why they look so rough. Alright, look at that. So that's going to be really pretty. And the reason I made it a certain size is because I want a little bit of versatility in the clasp and the chain. Once I choose one. Yeah, that way, I don't know, I'd like to find a way to make it adjustable. So I may use a lobster claw or a spring ring with a piece of chain, a spring wing. Okay. Alright, so what are we going to put on here next? Alright, so I got lots of pinks and purples there. I think I'll use these on the next round. Yeah, I've already got 3 strands, but why not make more? Kind of fun. Okay, so I need to think about this for a minute. There are some like extremely fine crystals in here, but I don't think I'm going to use those. And the charm I want to use, I'm going to have it hanging down that way. So I might make this one just a little bit longer. But I need a little bit of design into it, so how about just purple and pink, just like so. I'll make that just a little bit longer so I can hang the flower off of it, so it can just have a charm appeal. I think that would be cute. I would just have to make it even, and then I could reverse this here. Nothing wrong with designing on the fly. Never know what you'll come up with. So I don't know if I want 4 or 5 strands. I might want an extra small strand. Make sure I have enough out. Okay, that'll be kind of cute. I might make it just a little bit longer, just to, I think I will. Just so it'll have a little charm, you know, hanging down on the end of it. I think that'll be cute. So we'll just do it that way, and you know, it'll hang down a little bit. Get a little bit longer, and then maybe I'll just do another small row going across the top. I guess I could lay some out, see what it looks like. I've got these little pink beads here, so I could add a little bit of hot pink into that end. And I think I'll just do those every other one. Just to give it a little appeal. So I'm just gonna grab my scoop and grab some out. Let them fly all over the place. Okay, so I think that's what I'm going to do. And then these, I'm probably, should I put silver in them or not? That is the question. I think I'm just gonna use that as my silver element, and then do one more row here and just do a 5 strand. I think that'll work out fine. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and string, I think I'm gonna string this one together first with my scrap wire, and then I'll do the one with the charm. So I'll be back when I'm finished. Although I'm not much of a pink and purple person myself, I actually think this bracelet is quite pretty. It's very romantic, very soft, and I think it's going to look really good. And so I like to do uneven strands when I do strands, so I'm going to put the 5th one on. I've got another piece of wire. This one's a little bit longer, but I'm going to go ahead and string this piece up and make it just a little bit longer so that the flower dangles. And then we'll check and see what it looks like when I get it put on. Okay, so I've got all 5 strands on. I think that looks quite pretty. I'm gonna see what it looks like, what it's going to look like when I have it on my wrist. So yeah, I think that's gonna be quite pretty. It has that little flower accent, which is really cute. Okay, so when I flip my wrist over, so I'm gonna have the 2 rings, and it's gonna be spaced about 1.5 inches apart. So what I think I'm going to do is just attach the chain. Let's see, let's pull it this way so we can take a look at it. So I've got the 2 loops here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to add, I've got some link chain here, so I'm not going to need much at all, but I think what I'm going to do is add a couple of inches of chain with a jump ring, one on this end, and put a jump ring on this end, and then add a lobster claw clasp or a spring ring on the other end. So all I need to do is figure out how long I need to make the bracelet. And of course, you know, my wrist is about 7.5 inches around. Well, actually it's 7 inches, so I'll probably need it to go about 7.5. So let's measure and see. I want it a little bit loose, but of course not too loose. So I got 6 inches. So I'm gonna say, once I get the jump ring and the lobster claw or the clasp on, I'm saying, see, we're at 6 inches. So I'm just gonna do maybe a little over 1 inch just to be sure. I don't want this to be too difficult, but you know, just, I guess it's hard to tell when I've got my super duper glasses on, but I'd say maybe I'm gonna do about just a tiny bit over 1 inch. So trim that. And of course I might be experimenting here. You know, it may not be the right answer at all, but I'm gonna try it. So, to put this here. All right, happy with that. Now, of course, if I make a mistake, it's okay. I make a mistake. I am going to just kind of see where it falls, and I think that's going to be perfect. So, not quite sure what kind of clasp I want to use, but I do have plenty in silver. So the question is, what kind of clasps should I use? Okay, so I don't want anything big. You know, I don't need a super fancy high-end. It's kind of cute, although I don't have any turquoise on here. I'll use that for some project. So I'm thinking just, I could use a magnetic. If it would hold on. I would have to experiment and see though. because it may or may not, you know, hold on tight. I do have some lobster claws here as well. So I could use one of those. They're a little bit larger. So let me figure this out. Okay. If this is strong enough, I'd rather use one of these. So I'm going to go ahead and try it first. Because it's the easiest, you know, when you're old to put it on and off. So the only thing I don't like about the magnetic clasp is that they tend to stick to the bracelet, so sometimes you gotta finagle just a little bit. Just keep it from tangling up on it or sticking to itself. So grab another jump ring. And I'm going to put it on the end. I don't want the chain centered. I'm going to just, you know, put it on the end here. Just so when you try to cut up chains, it can be daunting sometimes. Okay, let's get that closed. Alright, we're going to find out live if this works or not. Just got to get my jump ring together here the way I want it to be and smooth. Okay, I think that's good enough. Alright, let's try it. So, I'm going to do it this way. Make sure all the pieces line up. And that actually goes there. This piece goes on the end over here. Let's see. I guess I should try that first. Alright, now I got it. Alright. Okay, clasped together. Okay, I think it is a little bit too big. Maybe a lot too big. So I am going to have to cut down my chain quite a bit. So I'd say, goodness gracious, quite a bit. But that's okay. You know, that's the beauty of experimenting with it. So all I have to do is take this off, trim it, and I'm going to trim it quite a bit. So I'm just going to leave 5 little links right there. I think that'll be plenty. And where did my clasp go? It's stuck to my pliers. Okay. That's probably going to be the hard part here, is putting that back on when the magnet exposed. Okay, putting it back together. That feels good. Okay. Of course, you gotta mess with the magnets just to get them right. Okay, so, alright. Looks like everything's lining up, and the moment of truth. Perfect fit. Okay. So it's gonna go around. And I could probably, I don't know. Actually feels good. It's not going to slide anywhere. And it's got a little bit of looseness. Maybe I should take out one more link. But overall, I'm pretty happy with that. So that one hangs down just a little bit to show off the flower. And I've got a little bit of silver in between each one. It's lacy, it's pretty, it's sparkly. It's going to move a little bit, but I think I'd rather it move just a little bit than for this to be tight and coming apart all the time, because I want it to stay on. So I'm got my hand down beside me. I'm shaking it just to see how it stays up, and actually it's holding up pretty well. So that's it. We have just created a beautiful 5-strand bracelet. I'm going to take some photos and then I'll post this video shortly.